Boom.
Hey, we're live, gang. How's it going today?
Awesome. How about
Good.
yourself?
Good.
Are y'all greased up?
Well, hey, we got B with us. And first of all, let's start before we even get rolling here. Where'd you get the nickname B? We're just because of the first letter in your name, or because you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, good question. Definitely. My mom's called me that my entire life. And I actually watched a lot of Winnie the Pooh when I was little, and there was little bumblebees with the dots behind it. And so it just kind of became a thing. And she's like, I think she got me B cake when I was graduating high school, even though I was well past the age for B the movie. But yeah, it's just always stuck. So most people who know me call me B, but I go by Brandy too. Either's fine.
Yeah. Nice. Just bumbling along.
Yeah. Yeah. Just buzzing around.
So, hey, before we get rolling here, we got Luis Claudio. Literally, what'd you say, Luis? You said out of your truck?
No, yeah, that's why I didn't think I was going to make it. I've been running flatbed this week, power only flatbed, and I just walked in trying to get all my paperwork, my logs, everything caught up. So
this is what this show's about, gang. This is what you're watching. You're watching a podcast with a guy literally rolling in from running flatbed all week, having to get his paperwork done. But that's called dedication. That's why it's Dedicated Trucking LLC.
Dude, this week sucked.
Did it? What'd you have?
Oh my gosh, it's so cold, and I got this cold.
And running. You were strapping.
Yeah, I was heavy today.
Where were you rolling? Where were you rolling?
They're milk runs here in our area.
Yeah, I know who it is. They're not strapping for you?
No, no. Yeah.
Yeah,
they actually. You have a helper who does strapping while you just hold the wheel.
You can hire a midget to do anything.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff's on.
Hey, buddy.
God, I'm telling you what, the mustache gets better and better every single episode.
Trying to get there, man. Just trying to get there. One hair at a time.
You're getting the up close and personal look here. It extends on the side. Again, I said it last week. You can't teach that.
Now it's starting to come down here,
Yeah, and so I gotta take this chance to make fun of Tony, because Tony's making fun of me on his posts. And just because we're best friends doesn't mean I can't make fun of him. So he's late. Nobody knows where he's at. Who knows? He's a good dad though. He's probably picking his kid up from practice. But I gotta take this opportunity to make fun of him. So. Oh, and before he gets on, we got invited to talk at a conference, just so you know. He was all excited. He called me the other night. Conference in Savannah, Georgia, coming up. I can't remember the name of the conference is. We'll have to call him out on it.
Nice.
But he's going. I'm going.
Does he want socks?
I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm going.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
So then we got Brandy with us. So, Brandy, why don't you give us a little intro on I'm looking at your profile. It looked like you've had success in other areas, right? Coming into this, and it's not surprising to me because we've had people reach out to us, like, hey, I wanted advice here and there. Some of these guys out there, so I don't know if he's going to catch it. It's like Where's Waldo, but Matt Dahl, he reached out to me all the time. Some of these guys that are newer come in, they got confidence, you know what I mean, which is key, but they're also humble. Yes. Right. So they're like, I got confidence, but also like, hey, quick question here, or I want to learn this, or whatever it is. And I think Melissa put a thing up on the post. The first comment there was like, it is kind of hard. And sometimes I got to slow down on, the lingo. And, I never really thought about it. And listen, I'm just a Christian man trying to raise children over here. You know what I mean? And I love freight, but man, when I first came in and I'm hearing, hot load and all these,
bro,
giggling like, man, I'm doing all this stuff, and it's like, but then also, I was sitting in dispatch when I first started, which really, really helped me because I heard all those things. But give us a little background on where you've been, what you're doing now, and really what your goal is.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for letting me come on here. I've watched your guys' show and follow all of you and have learned a lot through you guys already. So I really appreciate the opportunity to bring a rookie like myself on. And I'm super green. I know your post said a bit green. I'm very green. So I'm just a sponge, but I come from sales in the tech space more so, HCM platforms in particular, and really inside digital sales teams and helping companies grow their sales team. So more in the leadership space and things of that nature. And so logistics is a huge change. And it's funny because when I first took this position with KCH Transportation, I was really feeling like the imposter syndrome a little bit and thinking like, how am I going to do this? Like, I come from the digital space. Trucks aren't that digital. Like, they may have some digital capabilities inside of them, but what am I going to do? And it's been really enlightening to see how the skill sets I've had over time have actually helped me in this space. And then to your point, TJ, just getting to learn so many different terms and new things. I'm really big on knowledge. So it's just been so fun. Like, it's been really exciting. But I was telling Jeff, there are some parallels in it and understanding how to communicate with people. And, you know, the industry is different and the services, you know, being provided are different. But at the end of the day, you know, people buy from people. They want to work with who they like.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny how you say things, you know, translate over. Listen, my degree was in sports medicine, athletic training. Went to grad school for physical therapy. Yeah. But what made me good at athletic training was, you know, there's always those people that, you know, are 4.0 GPAs and book smart and everything. I probably could have been if I would applied myself, but I have this thing called ADD. But what made me good was relating to people, talking with people. You know, I was an athlete, but I was also very good under pressure. Right. So you can run on the field after an injury. You don't know what you're going to find. It could be some guy faking, or you could see a bone sticking out. Right. You got to be able to take control of the situation, you know, and make sure that everybody's where they need to be. Everything's under control, you know, whether or not, you know, the ambulance is called, whether doctors are on site, whatever it is, you know, you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with kids. And, you know, I never really thought about it until I really got into the industry. But that was always what kind of, I think it's what gravitated me towards like the leadership side of things, was because I was good at handling fires, right? In handling situations. Everybody's different, right? There's some people that just kill at producing. I mean, I know a guy, I've been trying to hire him for ever since I've started, and he's like, you know, making so much money just producing. He's like, I'm never going to leave. You couldn't pay me enough to leave what I'm doing. You know, and you look at some of these agents. I mean, you look at some of these, you know, John Jay, some of these guys, you couldn't pay him enough to come be a leader. I mean, because, you know, the salary's not there. Jeff probably, you know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things that like, there's different roles and different adaptations where you can gravitate to your strength. And it's pretty cool to watch. And I know you said, you know, I remember my owner called me in the office right when I first started. He's like, and I came from the finance world before then, because I ended up in sales. It was a terrible job market at the time. And he goes, what do you think about, you know, the leads and everything? I was kind of starting sales. And I said, I think it's awesome. I said, I used to have to pay for leads. Like finding somebody that wanted to, I mean, like even to call on was hard. Right. You know, I got a list of 200 in front of me. So, cause he was like, yeah, I see you're making a lot of calls. I'm like, well, yeah, cause I don't have to like pay for them or find them or anything. So it's kind of cool to see, you know, that transition too, from what, you know, you're seeing, how you could translate. And what I would do if I were to give you some advice, you know, just like Jeff did before, and I'd like you to touch on what you told her before too, Jeff, but take that, roll with your strengths. You know what I mean? Don't fight it. Don't try to go be anything else, but you'll find there's so many different roles and so many different ways to succeed that I think that's going to be your best bet. But Jeff, touch on what you were telling her before we got on air.
Yeah, you know, anybody that's coming into the business, for sure, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, you know, I'm very transparent and I tell it the way it is. But you know, you have to keep your foot on the gas. Like I told Brandy, you have to figure out what vertical that you want to work in. And it takes a little bit of time because you're going to be all over the place until you find yourself fitting into that, pigeonholing yourself, sort of speaking, that, you know what, I really like what I'm doing. And then what happens is you put a lot of focus into that and you become an SME in that vertical, that mode, geographical area that you like to work in, because you know it like the back of your hand. And once you have that down packed, then you can start branching out into other avenues, other revenue streams that you're interested in. But your focus should always be on what you know best, and explore that and make it as big as you possibly can. And then when you get to that point, branch out, you know, reach out to something that interests you, and then and do the exact same thing. And you find yourself after a long period of time, because it doesn't happen overnight, that you begin working less and making more because you know it like the back of your hand. You're a subject matter expert in that area. And now you start helping other people as well. And you start finding out what your true value is. And you just start exploring that. And like I said to you earlier, Brandy, you know, the best kind of reference or lead is a referral and a recommendation from clients you're currently doing business with, because it's no work on your part. If you're killing it and knocking it out of the park, what better reference and recommendation can you get from a client that would like to introduce you to one of their manufacturers or their suppliers? And then you start working for them and knocking it out of the park. Now you're really collaborating and you're putting a feather in your customer's hat as well as your own. And then also the new vendor or manufacturer that was your lead from your customer. And they in turn have other leads as well. And you can either go upstream or downstream because the spider has many different legs. And you'll learn that as you start exploring that. But it takes time, you know, just take the time to learn it.
What's your main role, Brandy?
Yeah, so I'm in the business development side. So I work with my operations team members with the booking of the carriers, but my side of it is more so making sure that I maintain the relationship and I'm handling the needs of our customers. But I'm visible to everything and have to be, because we have to ensure that, you know, if someone's trusting us with their freight, that we're getting it handled properly. So our ops team is amazing and has really taught me a lot. But I get to see all of that, and I really appreciate having that visibility. I've never been a person who just wants to get a customer and hand them off. I like the relationship. So I'm on the relationship side, but the ops team is on the relationship side with the carriers, which is awesome. So that both sides of the fence get the love and attention that they need. So
are you bringing in new business or maintaining existing?
So I maintain my customers, but I'm bringing in new business.
Your
That's
customer.
my main objective. Yeah.
Your customer that you already landed some, or you have?
Yeah. So I hit my goal last month, my first month. I was very excited. Yeah, thank you. So I have three, my three wonderful customers. I call them
Three
partners.
customers in February of 2023.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And they're
Tell
awesome.
me one of them's not Tony.
Yeah.
Swear to God, if one's Tony.
Yeah, it was exciting. Like I said, I was feeling like I was not gonna be able to do this at first, and then I just took a lot of knowledge from those around me and just started really learning, and then was able to network and get in front of some people and meet them where they were and meet them where they were at and what they needed. And now I have really cool customers who I call partners, because it's like phenomenal relationships and we help each other out. And so it's cool. I'm excited for March.
You're definitely taking the right approach, man.
Definitely.
I said it from the beginning. The fact you even reached out, I mean, that's just something people don't do. It's great. I love it.
Yep.
Lewis started in sales, and he actually was a broker or worked in broker before he got the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And before I made him into what he is now, I'm just kidding. I didn't. But Lewis, what was it that kind of guided you to your path, and what you saw that from that when you first started?
Well, when I was in brokerage, I was still a trucker. I was trucking at night, third shift, and I was getting off and rolling in the office at 8:30, brokering from 8 to 4. And I rode that way for just a little under a year. I did it. Excuse my boy.
It's all good.
Love it.
I did that for about a year. And at that time, I didn't know my wife. She was my fiance. So I was just trying to make a lot of money because I wanted to marry her. Yep. So I saved up enough cash, got her a ring, and got away from brokerage because I was just making more as a trucker. Still, obviously, now that I'm an owner, all of that applied to the whole, what I learned from sales and brokerage, all that ties into, being an owner today and how to work with people, how to communicate. All that plays a role into what I do today.
Yeah. So for those of you who are just joining us, Lewis just got out of his truck, was running flatbed all week. He's exhausted, trying to get paperwork done. He's got his kid running around. Bring him on if you need to. we'll chat with that little guy. He's going to be a future. I'm going to get a hold of him, man. We're gonna have him booking freight for you know it.
I've got one in Taekwondo, and the other one's running around with his Sesame Street toys.
Yeah, bring him on if you got to. But Tony, real quick, you kind of bounced around, went from hauling horses, right? Well, first of all, sitting on your dad's lap while you're driving a truck, to hauling horses like your dad did, to hauling steel, to then being kind of on in the docks, right? And then becoming a shipping manager, and getting to the point now where what I get from you is what I want, right? And what I strive for, at least, is the full concept of it, right? When I have conversations with you, when we're in the car together or whatever it is, we're talking about the loading, the unloading, the shipping.
Yeah.
I go to your docs and we talk about the shipping, the POs, right, and the management of the team. Dealing with salespeople, dealing with this, to drivers, right, to taking care of them, to being a shipper of choice, to like that whole entire spectrum. But what kind of guided you to where you're at, and what was something you felt, when you clinged on to, it helped you become, what you are today?
So a lot of what I enjoyed was the freedom and the mobility of being a driver. I enjoyed getting out there and being on the road. And sorry, I'm a little under the weather. My voice is going away, but I just liked I didn't want to be in the same spot. I didn't want to put my widget together and pass it to the next guy, and put my widget together and pass it. It just didn't get, that's not for me. I'm not that guy. And I didn't want to sit in an office and in a cubicle, and I didn't want a suit. And I said, what can I do where I don't ever have to wear a tie? And I honest to God truth, that's where it happened. And my dad had a CDL, and I ended up moving around all over the place in California, Pennsylvania, Texas, Indiana, just going everywhere. And I thought, well, I'll get a CDL. At least I can work no matter what the economy is, right. No matter where I live, I can just go get a job and make decent money. So I was doing that while I was young and stupid. And, I got into hauling horses, and I realized that I absolutely loved running the business. The horse business was cool, but I enjoyed like the P&L, I loved that. And I started like recreationally studying economics. And then, things happened. I got married and had a kid, and I got a steady job. And then that's when I realized I didn't want to drive a truck for the rest of my life. So I went back to school, and I started getting my degree finished. And it took 15, 17 years or whatever from high school, but I ended up with my degree, and I drove a truck for 2 years with my diploma and kept going. It's just one of those things, you just keep going. And when the opportunity presented itself, I took a pay cut and went inside and got a job in the office, and it was in technical services. And I learned a lot of like root cause analysis and automotive, 8D, the stuff that, leads you to root cause analysis, a lot of the lean philosophy and ISO certified stuff, how to get down that path to what really started everything. And once I got going down that road, then I did a pretty decent job, and they let me have a crack at running the fleet. And I was terrible. I was looking back, I was horrible. I'm surprised some of those guys are still my friends, but they shouldn't be. I was not a good leader at all. I'm still working on that part. I mean, I always tell people, the work is easy, the people are hard. I'm pretty sure that Brandon stole that from you. But
Did Brandon Bay steal it from you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh God, he always acts like he's so smart. He has some great quotes that come out. I'm gonna talk to him.
Yeah, you gotta hang out. I was gonna call in, but that's the hardest part about anything is leadership. And so what it turns into is you're not some great leader. You're just some guy who has to acknowledge his own pride and has to go and look in the mirror a little bit harder than you look at the other guy. LinkedIn's all about this positivity and fluff, and sometimes it's about swallowing your pride and sucking it up and realizing you screwed up and getting back out there and doing it again tomorrow. Be real. That's right. Be who you are and just be real. If the truck falls down on a load, I had a guy calling up today. Hey, I got mail too. I had a guy call up today and said the truck fell down on the load, but we got another guy coming in there. It was the same ETA. All right, that's cool. Great. Don't tell me you got a problem. Tell me you got a solution.
Yes.
I love to know that you solved a problem. Great. You're just increasing my confidence in you. Don't tell me I got a problem and I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I call you back later.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not helpful. So
Yeah,
I
that
ended up
is
on the
hard
other side of the
part.
desk and trying to build good teams and grow people. And what I learned is I really love helping people, and I
Yeah.
realized that I'm not a great leader, but I like helping people. So it puts me in a good spot, and I found a place that loves helping me do that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say, especially, to be here, I remember when I came in and I went kind of started in sales, went into dispatch. I remember VP Derek Holst was our, back then there wasn't very many of us. I mean, me and him were just kind of together. Andy Green and Stu were over there doing their thing, and me and him. And he was like, convinced me to go into dispatch. And I'm like, I don't want to go into dispatch, man. Like, I want to be in logistics or whatever. And he's like, I'm telling you right now, he's like, you get in and you learn this. He goes, you're guaranteed, $45,000, $50,000 a year job, no matter what, wherever you go. He's like, as long as you learn this, you get it down, he's like, it's going to make you better. And I went with it. I trusted the dude on a lot of things, and most of them all panned out. But it was that, I get in there, I'm in there young, right? You go into a dispatch crew, they're older guys, right? A lot of times compared to brokerage. They've been around a long time. Someone came from Celadon, here and there. And I'm flying around, I'm coming up with these things, and they weren't a big fan of me, to be honest. And I didn't really understand exactly why. I was just in there trying to, impress them, right? Almost kind of be not cocky, but you know what I mean? Like I was young.
Mhm.
What I found was the one guy, and I'll call him out, I hope he's listening, Chad Stavro. Me and him are like best friends now, but he hated me when I first started. And there was a time that I remember he was struggling on something, right? He was struggling on getting a trailer. He had a guy that needed to get an empty trailer, find an empty trailer somewhere. So I hear him, and I knew that I had just had a guy drop one, right? So I get on the horn, I figure it out. I call the guy, make sure it's unloaded or whatever. I get with Chad, and I get it figured out for him, right? Just because I heard him or whatever. And he was like all about it. Like, thanks, man. Like that was, and that's when I found that, like, when you kind of become it's kind of when I started, because I was good at it. I was good. We had drop trailers everywhere. I was good at figuring out where they were and how to do all these strategies, right? Remember Lewis? I'd be like, Lewis, you go and you drop this one. You pick up V1502. You run it over here. Listen, Bob's going to get that one, but you drop it here. I can run you over to Holland. You get this. Remember, I was like always strategizing and figuring out how to do it. But it was when I started helping others, when I really saw like myself see a success in it. It wasn't me being cocky. It wasn't me being successful. It was me letting them know that. It was like kind of just a leadership standpoint of not being a leader. We didn't have titles back then, right? And so, and be, where you're at, you may not even have, it's not always about your title, but when you're a leader from the get-go, the internal resources in a company, I will tell you this, are big. And I used to tell people this all the time, like, you're an account manager, be best friends with your carousel reps, right? Be best friends with your billing people. Be best, because you got to get your stuff billed to get paid, right?
Yeah.
You got to get your freight covered to get paid and get your margin where you need it. Make those internal relationships, and they're not always just like, hey, you want to go to lunch or something, but it's like that whole handle things and help them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that it's such a big effect in logistics, because you usually have more than one problem going on at once, and if somebody's solving one for you, you instantly are gravitating towards them, right? And it's a leadership thing that kind of builds and grows from there, and people see that. And I didn't realize people were seeing that as we were growing either. So if there's any advice too, I could throw from what Tony's saying there, where you're at now, is that there. And I think you coming in, leading by example, landing 3 customers in your first month in February of 2023. Now, were these, and it doesn't matter whether they were or not, because you landed them. Were these existing relationships you had, or were they? I mean, how did you source them, or what was your goal there?
Yeah, sure. So 2 of them are brand new, no previous interaction. And one of them is a great friend of mine who happens to be in a space where they move a lot of stuff and is happy to make money for me, which is awesome. But the other 2 I met at the Florida Trucking Show that happened at the beginning of February. And we just had some conversations and followed up with them. And we've just built a relationship ever since. One has really been throwing a lot of business to us, and we're trying to do the same for him. And then the other one is starting to pick up speed now too. And so really consistent, all 3 of them, which is really cool and fun to see that.
That's good.
Wait, the Florida truck? You went to a trucking show?
Yeah, like my second week, I found an event and asked my boss if I could go, and he said yeah, and I went with a colleague of mine, and
Good call. Good call.
just went and networked, and it was cool. I learned a lot there too.
Who does that? And that's, I will tell you this. If I could say one thing to leadership out there, sometimes it has to come down from ownership, but get your people out to these events.
Yeah.
When I really, really started gaining my confidence, it was not only visiting customers on site. My owner was big on that because he was always the one like, hey, set these up for me because he always loved driving. But then it was big for us. When we were landing customers, we were setting on-site meetings. Like nowadays, you set up a call, but like we were setting on-site meetings. That's what we were doing. And now we're Northern Indiana. We were going after a lot of automotive in our office, at least, there. But like then we were going to some of these events, and like that's when you really like are able to use your strengths, right? My strength was meeting, I never meet a stranger, right? And I'm sure that's apparently how you are as well. But you get out, it's not even just that. Like you could be sitting at the bar and talking to, I remember when Tony, what did we go out to? How many years ago was that? We went out to like Lean Solutions Vegas thing.
3.
I had a customer that I had been chasing. It was my Great White Buffalo. I wanted to get it for so long. I couldn't figure out, like nobody answered me. And I sat at the bar till 3:30 in the morning with Andrew Silver and Molo and talked to him. And he had it on and he was like, hey, they got so much freaking freight. It's a billion dollar company. He's like, this is the guy or whatever, and I said, all right, and I had one too. And I gave him, but we sat and talked about the ins and outs of everything. And I learned so much just from, not only about that company and a lot of things that, people try to talk about it, but about him, about freight, about things, that were, that I hadn't dealt with yet, especially because of what level he was at. But if anybody, leadership wise, get your people out there. And that's huge, B, that to get out there and do that and get somebody set up, well, what was your conversation? How'd you start that when you were out there? Especially not having the lingo or the background when it comes to it.
Yeah, I have to say I focused on the lingo a lot prior to going to that show, but I also looked into like every single exhibitor at that show and made like a huge spreadsheet and knew like every single exhibitor's business and what they did and like kind of to understand if there'd be any kind of traction there between where we could help them and vice versa. And with those particular ones, and most of the people I spoke to, I made some other really great connections too. They're just not customers, was asking them about their business and learning about their business. I love to learn anyway, so it's easy for me to genuinely ask, what do you do and what does that look like, and learn to see if there's any interest for me as a consumer of what they're selling, and then B, like, what are their pain points and challenges. And so it was really just conversating about their business and then asking them how they were moving or receiving, and if they were importing or exporting, and then what their OTR operations looked like, and them enjoying the conversation too and wanting to give me a shot. So kind of just unfolded that way, and a really cool event. I was really happy that I went to that. And
that was
what is your what's your time in the industry? What's your
1 month, Tony?
Yeah, I started January 23rd.
Oh my gosh. And you
That's awesome.
Here's the thing, you're going to be ridiculously successful
What
and
were you
you're
gonna
going to make
say,
a lot
Louis?
more money than all of us.
Louis got fired up.
Yeah, no. So you did a lot of cool things I don't know that I've heard, which I think already separated you. This spreadsheet that you said that you made that's like endless business. Like you have no idea how many avenues or seeds you planted just by doing that. Like, let's say you got nothing out of like 100 conversations other than 100 conversations. They might remember you. Right? Like a lot of those, just because you did your research and you found a way to get your foot in that, in one of them doors and have a conversation. Like that's solid. That's impressive. I don't know too many people who would go that far to learn this. That's pretty cool.
And you know what? The biggest reason why a lot of leadership doesn't have, newer people go to these events is because they're going to an event, they get excited, they're thinking, I got a hotel, all the meals are on the company. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go have fun. That's all I'm thinking about. There's no prep there. And I will be honest, my first one, that's what I did.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Now, I felt like I was going to bounce through, but you make it harder on yourself. But to have things prepped, to do research on who was going to be there, to be able to have those conversations, be strategic, is huge. And if anything, if anybody's out there and listen to this, if somebody wants to go, I would require that. I would say, hey, if you could go, but I want a breakdown of, because it freaking works, man. And I do it now mainly on it doesn't take me as long now, but I know who's there, who's where, and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But to be new and have to figure that out and still and have that so you can have those conversations, get up on your lingo is huge. And
so here doing that is immensely helpful to you because you didn't go out and buy an email list. You didn't copy and paste some form email telling everybody that you're the best there is this week that I'm going to hear from. I'm so sick of that crap. If you would have come up to me and told me about what I do and how you can help, man, what a difference. What a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, that'll for sure make you
keep it going.
Yeah, that'll for sure make you hit the brakes and listen, especially in a conversation.
We talk about it all
that's
the
always
time.
huge
Do your homework first. Go 100 times. You're 100 times better than the next 100 prospectors because you do the homework first. It's not quantity of calls; it's quality of calls. You're doing it right.
Yes,
you'll always see a big burst in sales if a leader, takes their people to events and creates that excitement. The numbers will show it. Like it's depending on when you do it or how often you do it. Excitement eventually wears off, but the more you can create that excitement piece, a lot of your people bend over backwards for you. Typically just from doing the simplest thing.
Look at what at Circle. You had, Derek, who's still VP over there from Whitco, Indiana, right? I'm from Auburn, Indiana. Andy Green from Churubusco. Stu's from Ireland, right? So, you got these guys that you're looking to be leaders at the program office, and it's like, how do we get them to buy in, right? I mean, them putting me in a plane my first time and sitting in. Matter of fact, my first flight I ever did was even an actual private plane because we had to go to Green Bay in a day. And it was my first time, my second time flying ever. I'm a kid from the country. My dad was a teacher, my mom was a secretary, and I'm in a plane, right? Where the pilot's going, hey, do you guys need more snacks and shit? That right there bought me in all in, right? It's just like a whole different ball game. And you could get these people to do that if you could find those ways to do it. Now it's hard. I mean, I've been in that spot where it's like, who's ready, who isn't. It's the ones that aren't coming and asking really sometimes that are ready. However, if somebody's new and they're asking and saying, this is why, and they lay out why, that's a whole different story. And they sit down and say, hey, this is why I want to go. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. That's a whole different ball game there. And to hear that you did that is huge. And what that's going to do, and Tony or Lewis, planting seeds like that. I've talked to my guys right now, keeping this alive. Guys, the guy at Cassandra had an interview with the guy at Truck Stop or whatever, and he knows a lot about the market, but, kind of only his niche, but still it's like, this is kind of a normal market, to be honest. I mean, spot rates are about where they usually are. Everything's about where they, everybody's saying, oh, it's a down market, everything's bad, but that's because they're so used to it being good.
Yeah, it's only down compared to the last 2.5 years.
That was so bad.
I've had to constantly hear that. It's a bad market. It's a bad market. Mm-hmm. This is a normalized market.
Normal market.
Everything went back to normal.
I would say fuel doesn't help when it comes.
Well, hold on. I'm getting there.
Okay.
So this is it's a normalized market, right? This is normal trucking. The rates you see is normal. What is not normal is obviously the fuel rates, right? Because they're high. And when they peaked, along with the rates, when rates were at their peak, that was not normal, and everything was great, right? There was tons of volume, everybody was moving. Like, what's not fun now is that it's a normal market. Fuel hasn't completely caught up with, the normalization of the rates, and depending on what market you're in, if you're in a single owner op and you're in a drive-in market, it's got you rethinking your game, your strategy, right? Because long term, that's a rough market to be in as a single owner op. If you got several trucks, that's different. You're playing with volume at that point. Mm-hmm. But it's a normal market, and if you want to level up your game, you got to look into either hazmat, you got to look into tanker, you got to look into cross border, you got to you got to find ways to
look at.
to shit to
Yeah.
move and pivot.
Lewis is calling me all the time. He's like, I think I'm gonna get a Sprinter van. I think I'm gonna get a box truck.
Dude, I'm horrible. My brain is ridiculous.
I go get a Sprinter van. I'll post you up outside of Detroit at 11 p.m. on a Saturday and find you at $4,200 load. Easy.
Dude, it's bad that I'm paper logs, man. I have no chill. Like,
I know.
seriously.
So, but my point was though, planting those seeds, because what
Yes.
I'm telling the guys here is, of course, rates are low, right? So, bottom of the barrel, the RFPs, these shippers are going low. I'm telling you guys, mid-April, May, probably mid-May, these carriers, all these people that wanted a price to get on knew they had to go low. They're getting gutsy. They're trying it. It's not just them pricing it. They still got to convince their drivers to run it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they don't understand is like, hey, we can get gutsy. We can play this, razor's edge to get this freight. We got the freight. They still got to convince your drivers to run it. So I'm telling you, you keep those relationships and those seeds are planted mid-May, early May, when these carriers are falling off all this stuff they committed to and now they're not following up on it. These shippers are gonna be scrambling and they're gonna need.
I've gotten 3 calls today. While we were talking, I got the TQL was blowing up my phone. But there's already a small uptick in certain lanes. I'm already seeing it with pricing, and it caught my attention.
There was those RFPs that were the October, November RFPs that went live January, right? And then there's a lot of these December, January, end of January, February, that are going to go live here soon. And so, but that's when you're going to see it because, a lot. So what happens is you look at it, you come out of a big market, we're pruning brokers, we're pruning carriers, right? The ones that screw up, right? And we're going to start fresh. We're going to bring people on it. Good opportunities. They do it. And then now they're actually down on carriers, right? They don't have as many. And so I was talking to my people too, when we're reaching out to somebody, hey, we just finished our RFP. Our RFP's already finished, we already put everybody on it. Hey, why don't you send the lane file over though? Send over the lanes. Let me get some pricing on file for you. That way, you and I both know that down the road here in the next month or two, somebody's going to fail. And now you don't have to scramble, go through your emails, find who else reached out to you, figure it out, go to your, you've got something on file there. So let's get some rates on file at least, and then let's retouch base. And I hope to hear from you down the road, but hopefully we've got good enough rates because I know our service will be there and we're going to price what we can service. So if you got to follow up, down the road, let's do that. And almost every single time they send it over. And I don't know how many times, this was probably actually it was in COVID. When COVID, like that, after that initial shutdown, I got calls right and left. And I forgot I even had talked to the people. They're like, hey, I got your rates on file. Hey, I got your rates on file. Hey, I got your rates on file. Right? Because now all of a sudden they needed carriers. And so these downsides or whatever they are, there's opportunity there. It's just like a strategic placement of what you're doing and how you're approaching it. And your approach be right off the bat is what it is. It's planting the seed and it's keeping those going because even the people you have now that you said they're trying to feed you more, they've got other carriers running their stuff. And who knows who fails and who doesn't, and they're going to feed you even more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very fortunate for them. I know some of them are getting better priced bids and are still giving me awarding me the lane if it makes sense for the overall cost. So it really comes down to the relationships, and I love that because I like to work with people I like too. So
well, you seem to be excelling in that, and I'll tell you what, man. As the guy making the decision on who to pick, we trust our jobs to people we trust with our jobs.
Right.
Yeah, bingo. Well said. Holy crap.
Boom. And you don't want to
put that on a t-shirt and sell it.
Right. You don't want to devalue your value.
Right.
Never devalue your value.
Yep.
Whatever you do, because that just makes you a lower service provider, not for yourself, but for a shipper. And they're just going to eat you up alive on that. But if you're very steady on what you need to do business and select who you want to do business with, you're going to be better off.
And that right there, what he just said, is so key because if you're good at what you do, like you are, and what I hear right now, you're going to come across it. It's going to happen. And I used to get up when I was younger because I was so hungry to get freight, and I would lose an account, and it pisses me off. I want to go back and smack myself in the face, 6 years ago, because they come over and they say, hey, all 10 of these lanes, TJ, you price great. We want to send you all of them. I'll send it over. Send it. That hashtag send it. Right. And we get up. And so you're going to have that because if you're good at what you do, they're going to offer you the stuff.
Yeah.
Right there. Look at what you need and what you can do and have that conversation. Say, listen, I appreciate this. This is what we can handle. Our reputation, our service is so key. We're going to take to these lanes. But I tell you what, if we could get more operations team, we're going to look to hire and kind of build more here. Can we revisit this in 30 days?
That's it.
Will you give us 30 days to revisit this and look at where we're at? Because I got to get 2 or 3 more people on my team to be able to service this for you. You know,
Correct.
And they'll freaking eat that up. They'll be like,
Yeah, because you're honest.
yes.
You're being
It's
transparent.
so hard. I'm telling you, especially when you're in sales and you got numbers, you got to hit, and you got people on your throat. And right now, there's companies that spent way too much money that are not doing well, who are putting that all on their sales team. So it's hard to do that, right? So, but if you can explain that though to your leadership and to the customer and get that from them, you have such a better chance of continuing that relationship. And then a month, 2 months down the road, you've got those 10 lanes.
Yeah, and you know what? To TJ's point there, if you want to do like a cost plus program, say here's my cost, 15% margin on top of it. It's set in stone. But remember, you're not hiring an individual, you're hiring a team. And I'm going to build that field of dreams for you to make sure that we service the hell out of your account. And this is what it's paying for. So when you think about that 15%, you're not buying me, you're buying a whole support team behind me that's going to ensure that we're going to service the hell out of it.
Brandy, think about it. Think about it this way. I sat in the boardroom at Patrick with a bunch of executives and a short list of providers from TMSs, and there was some great ones in there, Cubics and Redwood and Swan Leap, and all of the big names and TMS providers were in this room one at a time over the course of a couple of days, and everybody sold us their thing and said, this is how you'll fit and integrate with our thing. And what this one place did, Brad Hollister with Swan Leap said, I don't care what your thing is, I'm going to build something that fits it.
That's it.
And that, like, it floored me. And I was like, that's the guy I want to work with. I want to work with a guy that builds something that I need, not tells me what they got that we can adapt to.
Yep.
And, we, for whatever reason, it wasn't just me, but by any stretch, but we ended up going with them. And that's a great piece of software. It does a great job, and they still use it to this day.
Yeah, and the thing is the way that they were able to uncover it and tell me I'm wrong, Tony, but they asked many different questions, so they're able to build that around your needs and expectations. It's like if you don't ask those pertinent questions, you're not going to be able to help them. So it's the same thing with freight. Your primary objective when you go in there is to find out about their operational needs.
Right.
Where are they suffering? You're trying to uncover those hidden bank opportunities. Once you're able to understand that, then everything will fall into place and you can build that support team to meet their needs. But until you ask those questions, you're not going to know what they are.
And the key point there is this: when you're selling, I don't care if it's brokerage or assets. So if you look at it from this side, in brokerage, you're procuring carriers, and assets, you're recruiting drivers.
But
you can't, nobody. And I'm telling you right now, nobody. And this is why I always feel like I've always done good at sales. Because I've understood, I've had to recruit, right? I've had to be part of a carrier. Nobody can come in and say right now, I can provide you capacity, right? Now, they just can't. Here's why. Because what Tony just said, they're going to take what you have going, and you're going to have to fit the capacity they have. They're going to have to pull drivers off of other lanes, right? Drivers from other areas, and convince them to run your freight. Now, you better have good rates, right? Or they're not going to do it. Now, if I say, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to start small. Here's what I want to do. I want to get some data in our TMS.
Yep.
Right. Let's get a lane or two going. Let's get rolling. Right. This is a great way if you have assets to kind of set your broker setup too and say, hey, we may have to start with brokerage, get some data in our TMS. That way we can recruit to these lanes. I'm going to bring you committed capacity, not just capacity. Capacity in which the guy lives at the destination, the origin in the middle, right? Where these guys are on these lanes. And Lewis, as well as I do, there was lanes you were on. And what's his name? One of my quote drivers. I turned you on to up there in Michigan.
Randy?
Whatever it took to stay on this lane. Like he was gonna make sure he serviced the hell out of it because his wife was happy. He was through the house. He cut wood on weekends up in Michigan, and that's a capacity that's committed, right? Yeah. And so Not only that, but then you can develop that. And now that shipper is literally, because you're recruiting drivers and procuring carriers through their freight, they're growing their own capacity, not funneling from somewhere else.
Right.
And so when carriers come in and say, or brokers say, I've got 10,000 carriers. Fuck, who cares? I've got 200 trucks. Fuck, who cares? 200 trucks, 198 of them are running on Ford. What are you going to pull 2 over? Because you're not going to fail on Ford, I'll tell you that much. So how do you get in and say, hey, let's build your own capacity around it? Let's start with a lane or two, right? Let's get rolling from there. And now you're building your own capacity around your freight, your origins, your destinations, your commodities. They like strapping. They don't like strapping. They like blocking and bracing. They don't like blocking and bracing. You're going to find people that do and run it. And so those are the conversations now, as you move forward that you have, because everybody wants to come in and get it right off the bat, right off the bat. But what's going to happen is you're going to have that conversation. They're going to like you enough that they're going to say, hey, did you say you're strong over in here? Or did you say you have some flatbed? Or can you let me on spot bids for brokerage? How about on this, right? Now all of a sudden they start opening up. It's things. And it's funny, those conversations all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm getting my ass kicked out of Houston, Texas on these spot bids, or oh, we can probably help there. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. Now that doesn't happen every time, but it's something that, like you said, it's a transparent and honest thing that actually makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense to them.
Yeah. And
it's a lot harder to BS your. Go ahead,
Liz.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a lot harder to BS your way through authenticity. You know what I mean? It's a lot harder to do that than to being transparent. Like,
if you tell them that makes sense,
really
were they going to argue that and be like, yeah, you're right. I'd actually rather have the other capacity. Now, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, right now, some of them are just tied to the fact they got to get rates low. They just do. I mean, they have the lowest rate. It is what it is. So you may try to get in whatever you can and just try to do what you can. But at the end of the day, like, that's just where they're at. But it's going to come to the point where they're going to have, and they know it in their mind because they're tied to it too. And they're pissed because they're like, man, I'm going to get screwed, but this is what my bosses are telling me. Stick with it. Service. They're going to come calling to you down the road because they're going to say, all right, now I got the green light to come get you. Let's roll.
Yep. Bits and pieces. Don't try to chew off more than you can handle. Take it, bit by bit, prove yourself. And once you're able to do that, you'll get more business from that, because now they can say, we know what we have. Why not give them another lane? We know the service. We know the discipline. We know all the cost, everything.
Mm-hmm.
No brainer. But do it systematically.
You think incumbent carriers become incumbent carriers just because the owner takes them out to dinner or whatever? I mean, that's not what it is. Now, the owner may still take them out to dinner, and that's definitely a plus. However, they know that if something goes wrong, they can call him, and he's going to freaking handle it, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's their business. And they know that they stuck through each one of these rounds and these cycles of these RPs. They visit every quarter. They got a scorecard. They review it. They fly down to see him. I don't know how many people I went down to see, even just recently, because a lot of people haven't got back into it, that are like, TJ, just because you came down and saw me, literally drove here in person, I'm going to open you up to a couple other things. Like, that means a lot. Like, it does. It really does. And so it's like, hey, I took my whole entire day. Usually I try to pair multiple customers if I'm going to make a trip, right? But sometimes you just have to make one. And it's like, it's going to be worth it because they see that, like, hey, this matters, right? How important is this to you? And if they know it's important to you, then they know that their job's not only like in your hands, like Tony said, but their job's made easier.
Yeah.
One of the mistakes a lot of people make in their pitch is telling us how great they are. That it's from the buyer's point of view, it comes across as, you're going to do my job better than me. And if you're going to do that better than me, why am I here? I mean, don't sell me on the fact that that I'm not necessary, right? It's a terrible approach. I hear it all the time. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to come in and like in 8 seconds, I'm going to save you 25%.
Yeah, you're excited somebody answered the phone, but you can't jump into people like that.
It's not Geico, man.
I've never had success that way.
Right.
Yeah.
They feel that you're threatening their job, and so the comeback is no, I'm trying to help you to put a feather in your cap so you look great.
Yes.
In the front of the people that you report to. That's what I'm here to do, is to help you get to that goal and objective.
Yep. I remember I
I'm
did
not taking your job.
I did a drop trailer strategy for somebody that didn't use brokers, but I put it together. I got with the shipper, everything. I talked to him. I said, hey, take this to your boss. Do not tell him I did it. Tell him it was all your idea, everything like that. And we worked together on it. So it was kind of both of us, right? You take it on, go get it. Because what's going to happen is I'm like, I don't care if he likes me or not. He doesn't even know who I am, right? But what it's going to do is going to give you that green light to be able to make more. Because they're like, they would come to me. We'd have conversations like, TJ, man, he's like, I'm hamstrung. You know, I can't make this decision. I can't make that decision. I'm like, we already are doing this and it's working. Take this to your boss, show him that it's working. Tell him, hey, I came up with this. I put this together. I got a great carrier that works with me. But, you know, this is what I came up with and it really works because he was part of it, right? But that's what it is. Make them look better. That's all. I could give two shits as long as you're giving me freight.
I tell people all the time. Sorry. I tell people all the time that my job is to help you, but my job is also to make my boss look better. Everything I do is to make my boss look good to his boss. And if you do that to your people, to your customers, you will be a rock star. Yep. I'm not here to make me look good. I'm here to make him look good. Who's going to have the power to promote you? Him. You make him look good, you're going to go with him.
Mm-hmm. And that's a
rock star.
And that's what somebody will really cling to you. I used to tell my people all the time, like, throw me. So my owner used to do this. He's like, throw me under the bus. Tell him I was on you and I told you to do this. I used to go to my people all the time. They come and be like, TJ, man, they're all over me. I did this. I'm like, tell them, listen, because I was probably involved in it. I was like, tell them it was me. Throw me under the bus. I don't care. Your relationship with that account is what matters, not mine. I'm overseeing the whole division. You throw me under the bus. I made it. Put me in the email if I have to, and I'll tell them, hey, listen, I told them to do this. You know, because I most likely I didn't really have them lie, but if I did, because sometimes I did, you know, and I was humble about it. Just like Tony said earlier, as a leader, I was very humble about things like that. Mm-hmm. I was just the other day, I was telling somebody, I said, hey, a sales guy, Cody, he's probably off now. I said, hey, do this, try this strategy. He calls me like after a week. He's like, man, I feel like I'm struggling. I feel like nothing's really going. I said, then fuck it, let's go back the old way.
Right.
He goes, what? I go, I thought it would work, man. I don't know. Because this guy's a stud. Like, so I know he did it how I asked him. But I was like, I thought it would work. But the more that you talk about it, I actually talk to some other people. Go back to your old way. It was working. It was working well. Let's do it. He's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. I'm not always right. I like trying new shit, but you know, it is what it is. So, you know, if you could do that same thing with your customer, you could do that same thing with your people that you work with. You know, that thing to you. They really will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remember, I let him make fun of me all the time. I let him make fun of me. He thinks he's got me. You know what I mean? But I'm texting his wife. I'm texting Amy all the time saying, Tony told me this and Tony did this. And like, she knows. And so he wonders why sometimes he gets in trouble, but it's because I tell him all the time.
Remember one thing, you know, I always ask this question was, who signs your paycheck? Oh, my boss does, you know, the accounting. No. Has nothing to do with them. The way that they get paid and you get paid is by their clients. So if you focus in on your clients are the ones that sign your paycheck every single week. So if you get that mindset and you focus in on what the goal and objective is to serve them correctly, you'll always have a paycheck. And it's so much cheaper. It's so much cheaper to keep a client on board than to find a replacement, for sure. I think everybody would agree on that. There's too much time that's wasted when you don't service your customer correctly. They go south on you, and now you got to go through the whole steps again, making those phone calls, trying to get a new one in there to replace it. It's a waste of time. So always focus in on that, on all your customers.
And it doesn't make you, if you're in sales, it doesn't make you. So some people think that like, okay, I brought a deal on, right? And then it didn't work out, right? And then I brought another deal on, it didn't work out, right? And then they're like, you know, kind of getting in hot water, and they're like, well, I better bring all these deals on, right? Well, leadership isn't looking at how many deals you're bringing on, it's how many successful deals, right? How many tenors are you bringing on? What's your margin? So like, don't fall into that trap because it's easy to do that, right? Because you numbers push. Mm-hmm. But like justify, just like I always talk about, you know, in the article, the art of the spot bid, right? Just like you justify your bids, if you want somebody to pay more, right, or take your spot bid because you're justifying why and you're giving them reason, it's the same thing in what you're doing in your job. If you're going to do something and you've got a strategy to it and you're going to slow roll it, justify that, right? At the end of each week, send an end of week checkout saying, hey, this is where I'm at with this. Okay. Obviously, it hasn't landed yet. I know you talked the other day. You said, I talked to you on the phone. You were all excited. You were like, hey, let's get this in. Let's get this on the board. Let's get freight on the board, right? But here's what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is who I've talked to, and this is what's going on. Justify it. The problem is people keep that to themselves too much. You can put it in your CRM or whatever it is, but you got to be able to justify what you're doing because they've got people above them saying, hey, why we got a sales team. Is there freight on the board? Is there freight on the board? Is there freight on the board? Well, they say no. They're like, oh, well, they got these deals going on. Okay, well, why does it take them 3 weeks? Why does it take them 4 weeks, 5 weeks, right? Justify what you're doing always.
Mhm.
And if you've got a good strategy, stick by it. And I'm telling you right now, and I wish I would have done this when I was younger. If they don't buy into it, move on.
Yeah.
If they don't understand that it works, move on. Because I'm telling you, somebody will. And you have that conversation with one person, especially right now, you're going to get a lot of connections here. After this, somebody already called you the GOAT. But you're going to be able to have those conversations that people are going to get it. You're going to find somebody who does get it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to protect my time as much as I want to protect other people's time. So
Yep, sure.
if they're telling me no and it's just going to continuously be a no and there's not opportunity, then why waste each other's time? There's too much movement in this industry from what I can tell to linger.
She's a month in and she's using my best line.
Yeah.
My God.
Brandy, you're going to be a rock star. You already
Yeah,
are,
definitely.
and it's
Thank
you've got
you.
the right mentality, you've got the right ethic, and you've got the right mindset. Just keep doing what you're doing, and don't be influenced by the people who think they know what you're doing.
Yep. You're going to see a lot of that on LinkedIn. It's hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep, they're gonna
Nowadays,
tell you.
especially, there's a lot of people that that we're doing good, and you know how it is. People like to talk when they aren't doing as good as they were because they're trying to make up for it a little bit, right? So just stick to your guns, do what you're doing because nobody would have known you've done better than most salespeople have in
Years.
general. I mean, three
In a tough market.
We're already moving freight with all three
Yeah.
at a trucking show that you met. Two of them at a trucking show.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Like who would have thought, right? You
Lewis
want to
is
get in
like,
this
what the-
industry.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
way
hit up
ahead
a
of
trucking.
game.
I'm gonna hit up a trucking show. Like that's brilliant. That's
Lewis is like, what the fuck?
brilliant.
Lewis is like, what the fuck? I just drove flatbed all week. This chick's over here landed 3 accounts. What is going on? I know. That's how it is. That's why I love this show. I learned just you saying that, listening to you right now, that motivates me. It's huge. So listen, guys, go follow B, go follow Brandy.
Thank you.
Start
Yeah.
pushing some things out. Let's get the comments going. We got a lot of comments going here
Yeah, if
today.
your boss doesn't like you for whatever reason, hit me up. Create,
We're gonna get
create something.
I hope he's still watching. That's hilarious.
no, he'll hold on to you.
Yeah,
hold on.
yeah, you would. I would.
I got a handle it stamp.
Yeah, my ops team was trying to snipe me today, and he won't make the trade. So
Who?
I think I'm stuck for a while. My operations team was wanting me to come over there.
Yeah, that'll happen. Hey, that's one thing I will tell you. Always keep your value up.
Yeah,
Any
definitely.
company you're in. That's why I always kind of wore a lot of hats. And even if I just wore one a little bit, that way, no matter what happens, they know they could shift you because it's key.
Brandy, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for coming on last minute like
yeah.
this. And you're the perfect guest. I mean, you're new to the industry and you're killing it. And
Thank you.
I couldn't have asked for better. And hopefully people in your shoes can come out and learn from this too. And pretty soon the best way to learn something fully is to teach somebody else. So get out there and share that knowledge because honest to God, you're doing it better than veterans.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We get humble. We bring on some good guests, and we get
Yeah.
humbled a lot. But I've never felt, and I haven't seen Lewis or Jeff be visibly humbled as we were today, hearing how you started off like this. Not humbled from the standpoint of you said some things that I haven't thought of in a while, or maybe I've not thought of at all. And you brought out things that Tony, Lewis, and Jeff have said that I thought of at all. And your success, how quickly you got off the bat, it's like I look back and I'm like, God, I didn't do that well at all.
Yeah, if you did just that, if you just duplicated that for the next year, forget it.
Oh my God.
And if you did like nothing more,
That's the plan.
nothing.
Well, you better start thinking about hiring some people because you're not going to be able to handle it as much as you think you are.
Yeah,
If you get 3 new accounts every month, man, you're going to be busy.
She's gonna
Yeah,
be.
that's
She's gonna
That's
have
a
her
good
own.
position to be
I
in.
got one question for you before we go. Why do horses have such a low divorce rate?
Oh God, seriously.
It's because their relationships are very stable.
Oh man, that's
Impressive, Tony.
and I'm,
Bye, guys.
I will say, in a year, there's going to be a new MC number that's going to be applied for with her new business, B2B Logistics.
Probably.
Yeah,
yeah, I like that.
I do too. Nobody take it.
Wait until you get the invoice, B. You're not gonna like TJ on that one. You're not.
Yeah, it's fine.
I
I'll have
got
to
it.
hang out
I
with
got a
that.
link. All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you guys
Randy.
so much.
Hey, thanks for joining
Thank
us,
you.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
See ya.